At 63, Mariam signed a piece of paper that split her entire life into two halves. On one side was everything she had built over 28 years. A grand house, designer furniture, imported things, and a name that made people stand a little straighter when they heard it. On the other side was just her, alone. No guarantees, no plan, nothing but an old brass key she had locked away in a small drawer years ago, and never once explained to anyone why she still kept it. She had carried that key through every version of her life, through dinner parties where she smiled at the right moment and laughed at the right volume, through school runs and doctor's appointments, and years of being the person who remembered every detail so that someone else never had to. She had carried it through the mornings when she found the first receipt, a hotel bill, his name, 4 nights. A month she remembered because they had attended a wedding that same week, and he had held her hand during the vows. She had folded that receipt carefully and placed it in the back of a kitchen drawer, beneath the takeout menus and the expired coupons, in that no man's land where things go when you are not yet ready to decide what to do with them. 6 months later, there was a second one. A restaurant she had never been to, 3 dinners, dates she could trace back to evenings when he had said he was working late, and she had left a plate covered in the microwave and gone to bed alone. She had put that one in the same drawer without speaking a single word about it. Not to him, not to anyone. She had told herself she needed more time, more certainty, more of something she could not name, but kept waiting for anyway. And then last week, the third one. She had stood in that marble kitchen for 19 minutes holding it. She had counted the minutes on the clock above the stove, and then she had set it down on the counter, left it right there in the open for the first time, and gone to get dressed. She had an appointment at 9. When her husband's lawyer smiled at his colleague in quiet celebration, Mariam looked up at the judge and said she didn't want any of it. The room went still. His lawyer stopped mid-sentence. The judge looked up from his papers for the first time all morning. Her own lawyer leaned over immediately and said her name in a low, urgent voice, the voice of someone watching another person step toward the edge of something very high. But Mariam had already made up her mind. She told the judge she would accept a small settlement and release her claim to the marital property. She said it in a steady, ordinary voice, not because she was brave, but because she was finished. There is a particular kind of stillness that comes to people who have spent years holding something without being able to put it down. And when they finally set it on the ground, the stillness that follows does not feel like weakness. It feels like the first full breath in a very long time. Her husband spoke once, from across the room, in that measured, practiced voice she had known for 28 years. He said she would regret this. He said when she realized what she had done, when she had nowhere to go and no one to turn to, she would understand. She heard the words. She was already thinking about the key. She signed where they told her to sign. The pen moved across the paper. That was the only sound in the room. She did not look at him again. She stood up, gathered her coat, and walked out through the heavy doors into the afternoon, into the ordinary light of an ordinary Thursday. And the city moved around her the way cities always do, indifferent and continuous and completely unmoved by the private disasters of the people passing through it. She did not look back, not even once, because what she had left behind was not a home. It was a beautiful cage, whose walls were so polished and bright that the person living inside had stopped being able to see the darkness altogether. She drove for 40 minutes without music, without the radio, just the sound of the city thinning out around her. Fewer lanes, lower buildings, front gardens instead of parking structures. At some point, the highway became a road, and the road became a street, and the street became the kind of neighborhood where people left their garden hoses out and their gates unlocked, and their porch lights on at all hours, because that was simply how things were done here. She had not been to this house in 11 years, but her hands knew the way. The door opened with a sound like something waking after a very long sleep, not a creak exactly, more a long exhale, the way an old house breathes when someone it has been waiting for finally comes back. Mariam stepped inside and stood in the narrow hallway without moving for a long time. The room was small. There were water stains on the ceiling from a winter she had not been here to see. The curtains, thin and pale, held the particular stillness of things that have not been touched in years. There was a smell, dust, and closed air, and something underneath both of those, something older and warmer, the dry, specific warmth of a house that has held the memory of people inside its walls long after those people have gone. She walked slowly, the way you walk through a place you are afraid to disturb. The kitchen linoleum was the same. The bathroom faucet dripped once when she touched the handle, then caught itself and went quiet. She stood in the doorway of the small bedroom at the end of the hall and looked in without entering. Then she went to the other one, the smaller one. It was the room that had belonged to her son Bill, and she stood in its doorway and felt something she had not felt in a very long time, the particular weight of a moment that has been waiting for you. The window faced the side garden. The glass was clouded with years of weather it had endured alone. On the floor, a stripe of pale afternoon light lay across the dusty boards the way light does in rooms that have been quiet for too long, as if it has finally found a place to rest. She looked at the door frame. The marks were still there. Pencil lines, each one with a date written in her own hand. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 7. She moved toward them slowly and pressed her fingers against the lowest one. The wood was smooth there, a little paler where the pencil had faded, but she could still feel the slight indent, the place where she had pressed the pen hard enough to make it permanent, hard enough so that no amount of time or repainting could take it away. She remembered the morning she had made that mark. Bill had been wearing new shoes that were half a size too big because he had wanted them so badly, and she had not had the heart to say no. He had stood against this frame while she found the pencil, and she had made a small ceremony of it the way she always did, chin up, stand straight, there you go. And afterwards she had taken him to his first day of school alone because his father had a meeting that could not be moved. She had understood at the time, or she had told herself she understood, which is a different thing entirely, though it takes years to learn the difference. She sat down on the floor with her back against the wall, courthouse clothes and all, and she cried. Not the way people cry in films, not with sound and drama, but quietly with her hands in her lap and her eyes open, the way people cry when they have spent so long holding themselves together that a single undisturbed moment is enough to undo them entirely. The afternoon light moved across the floor. From outside came the sound of someone mowing a lawn 2 houses down, and a dog that barked twice and stopped, and the distant low sound of children somewhere she could not see. Ordinary sounds, neighborhood sounds, the sounds of a world that had been going on without her for 11 years, and had never once stopped to wait. After a while, she was not crying anymore. She was just sitting. The house was quiet in the way this house had always been quiet, not empty, just still. Not abandoned, just waiting. She had walked away from 3,000 square feet of imported marble and custom cabinetry, and a refrigerator that cost more than her first car, and she was sitting on the dusty floor of a house that needed everything. And for the first time in longer than she could properly remember, the silence around her was not the wrong kind. It did not press against her chest. It did not require anything of her. It just sat with her, the way old houses do, the way certain rooms do, the rooms where you were once entirely yourself before the world began asking you to be something else. She pressed her palm flat against the floorboard. She could feel the grain of the wood through the dust. She sat there until the light changed, and the stripe across the floor had moved all the way to the wall and disappeared. And then she got up slowly, brushed off her clothes, and stood in the middle of the room. There was so much that needed doing. The walls, the faucet, the window that probably stuck, the porch step that looked like it had been soft for years. She had no idea how to do most of it. She would learn. She would figure it out one thing at a time, the way you figure out everything that actually matters, not by knowing in advance, but by staying long enough to find out. She went to the kitchen and stood at the window. Outside, the side garden was overgrown and pale in the early evening light, but somewhere at the back, beneath the weeds, she could see the dark soil where things had once been planted. She thought she might plant something there. Tomatoes, maybe. She didn't know yet if the light was right. She didn't know a lot of things. But she was here. She had the key. And from today, everything begins.